There is a strange tragedy happening in the modern world, and most people never see it. Not because it is hidden, but because it looks completely normal. Every morning, millions of people wake up before sunrise. They rush through breakfast, fight traffic, answer emails, attend meetings, solve problems, handle responsibilities. Then they come home exhausted, only to repeat the exact same cycle tomorrow, year after year, decade after decade. And from the outside, it looks like commitment, responsibility, hard work, success. But beneath the surface, something else is happening, something far more dangerous. They are working harder on their jobs than they are on themselves. And eventually, that imbalance creates a life most people never intended to live. A life that feels strangely empty despite constant effort. A life where the paycheck grows, but the person does not. A life where achievements accumulate, while fulfillment quietly disappears. Jim Rohn once said, "Learn to work harder on yourself than on your job." Most people hear that sentence and think it's career advice. It isn't. It's a warning. A warning about one of the most common mistakes human beings make. A mistake so subtle that people often spend decades making it before they realize what happened. Because the truth is, your job can make you a living, but only personal development can create a life. And if you're honest, you've probably felt this before. Maybe late at night, when the house finally becomes quiet, when nobody needs anything from you, when there are no emails left to answer, no meetings left to attend, no responsibilities demanding your attention, and suddenly, you are left alone with yourself. Those moments can be uncomfortable, not because of what life has done to you, but because of what you've stopped becoming. There is a difference, and most people never notice it. They think exhaustion comes from working too hard. Sometimes it does, but often, it comes from growing too little. Think about that. The body can tolerate extraordinary effort when the soul feels alive. People will work 16-hour days building a dream. They will sacrifice comfort, sacrifice sleep, sacrifice certainty, and somehow feel energized. Meanwhile, another person works 8 hours doing something they hate and feels drained every minute. Why? Because human beings don't just need activity. They need meaning. They need growth. They need evidence that they are becoming more than they were yesterday. Without that, even success begins to feel heavy. This is where many adults quietly begin to suffer. Not dramatically, not publicly, silently. The 45-year-old who achieved everything he once wanted, yet feels strangely disconnected from his own life. The father carrying enormous responsibility, but secretly wondering where his ambition went. The woman who spent years taking care of everyone else, and now barely recognizes herself. The professional who keeps climbing, only to discover the view isn't what they imagined. These people aren't lazy, they aren't weak, and they aren't failing. In fact, many of them look successful. That's what makes this so dangerous. Because society often rewards productivity while ignoring development. It praises output, not transformation. And over time, people begin measuring their value by what they produce instead of who they become. That shift changes everything. Behavioral psychologists have observed something fascinating about human nature. People adapt incredibly quickly. The promotion that once felt exciting becomes normal. The salary increase becomes expected. The new house becomes ordinary. The achievement loses emotional power. This phenomenon is called hedonic adaptation. But few people realize its deeper implication. External success has a shelf life. Internal growth does not. The excitement of accomplishment fades. The expansion of character remains. Which raises an uncomfortable question. If all your achievements disappeared tomorrow, what would remain of you? Would there still be confidence, wisdom, discipline, purpose, emotional strength? Or would your identity collapse alongside your accomplishments? That question becomes increasingly important as life moves forward, because eventually, everyone reaches an age where experience begins revealing truths that youth cannot understand. One of those truths is this: the greatest investment you'll ever make isn't financial. It's personal. And yet most people spend more time planning vacations than planning their own growth. More time upgrading devices than upgrading their minds. More time improving their resumes than improving their character. Not because they're foolish, because modern life constantly pushes attention outward, toward achievement, toward status, toward appearances, rarely inward, toward self-mastery, toward awareness, toward transformation. And this creates a dangerous illusion. The illusion that success is something you acquire, when in reality, success is often something you become. That distinction changes everything. Because if success is something you become, then personal development isn't optional. It's foundational. It becomes the soil from which every meaningful achievement grows. Without it, even victories feel hollow. With it, even hardship becomes meaningful. Ancient Stoic philosophers understood this deeply. They believed the quality of a person's life depended less on circumstances and more on character. Less on what happened externally, and more on how one responded internally. Centuries later, Jim Rohn taught a remarkably similar lesson. Different language, same truth. Work on the person, and the results will follow. Ignore the person, and eventually the results will stagnate. Not because the world is unfair, because reality eventually reflects identity. And perhaps that's what many people feel when they reach middle age. Not simply the passing of time, but the realization that time has been shaping them whether they intended it to or not. Every habit, every excuse, every standard, every decision, every compromise, every discipline, every distraction, all of it quietly constructing a person. The question is, who is that person becoming? Because one day, your future won't arrive as a surprise. It will arrive as a reflection of the thoughts you repeatedly entertained, the habits you repeatedly practiced, the standards you repeatedly accepted, and the version of yourself you repeatedly chose. That is why Jim Rohn's advice remains so powerful decades later. It wasn't really about work. It was about identity. It was about refusing to spend an entire life building a career, while neglecting the human being living it. And once you truly understand that, everything begins to look different, including the life you're living right now. But there is another truth hidden inside Jim Rohn's philosophy. A truth that becomes increasingly painful as people get older. Most people spend their entire lives improving their ability to earn, while neglecting their ability to live. At first, this doesn't seem like a problem. When you're young, survival feels urgent. Bills need to be paid. Careers need to be built. Responsibilities arrive quickly. And naturally, most of your energy goes outward, toward work, toward achievement, toward proving yourself. But somewhere along the way, many people stop growing. Not physically, not professionally, personally. And that's where the real danger begins. Because life has a strange way of exposing stagnation. You can stop exercising your body for a few months and notice the effects. But when you stop developing your character, the consequences arrive much more slowly. They show up as frustration, as cynicism, as chronic dissatisfaction, as the feeling that life should feel better than it does. Most people mistake these feelings for external problems. They blame the economy, their boss, their age, their circumstances. Sometimes those things matter, but often, the deeper issue is internal. They stopped evolving, and human beings were never designed to remain psychologically still. Growth is not merely desirable. It is necessary. Without growth, the mind begins creating suffering. This is why some people become increasingly bitter as they age, and others become increasingly wise. They experienced similar challenges, similar losses, similar disappointments. But one person used hardship as a teacher. The other used hardship as evidence that life was against them. The difference wasn't circumstance. It was development. One continued expanding. The other stopped. That distinction changes entire destinies. There is a reason so many adults secretly feel trapped. Not physically trapped, psychologically trapped. Because they are living from an identity they outgrew years ago. The same fears, the same insecurities, the same excuses, the same limiting beliefs, repeated so often that they no longer feel like beliefs. They feel like facts. And once a belief feels like a fact, change becomes difficult. Behavioral psychology calls this identity consistency. Human beings naturally act in ways that reinforce who they believe they are. A person who sees himself as disciplined behaves differently. A person who sees himself as unlucky behaves differently. A person who sees herself as capable behaves differently. A person who sees herself as defeated behaves differently. The actions are different. But more importantly, the future becomes different. Which means the greatest battle isn't against the world. It's against outdated versions of yourself. The version that still doubts, still procrastinates, still seeks comfort over growth, still chooses immediate relief over long-term fulfillment. And this battle becomes especially intense in middle age, because by then, you've accumulated evidence. Evidence of failures, evidence of mistakes, evidence of disappointments. And if you're not careful, those experiences begin defining you. A failed business becomes, I'm not good enough. A divorce becomes, I'm broken. A setback becomes, this is who I am. But experience is not identity. It never was. One of the most destructive mistakes people make is confusing what happened to them with who they are. Jim Rohn understood this. He understood that personal development is fundamentally about reclaiming authorship of your own story, not denying the past, not pretending pain didn't happen, but refusing to let the past become your permanent identity. Because the moment a person believes they cannot change, their future begins shrinking. And perhaps this explains why so many people feel exhausted today, not merely because life is demanding, but because carrying an outdated identity is heavy, very heavy. Imagine spending years proving limitations that no longer need to exist. Imagine spending decades protecting excuses that once protected you. Imagine carrying beliefs created by a younger, frightened version of yourself, long after they stopped serving you. That is emotional weight, and millions carry it every day, silently, without realizing it. The irony is that personal development often begins with subtraction, not addition. You don't need a new personality. You don't need endless information. You don't need another productivity system. Sometimes you simply need to remove what no longer belongs. The excuses, the victimhood, the self-doubt, the resentment, the stories you've repeated so many times they became part of your identity. Because growth isn't always about becoming more. Sometimes it's about becoming free. Free from patterns that have quietly controlled your life for years. This is where discipline enters the conversation. And discipline is often misunderstood. Most people think discipline is about forcing yourself to do difficult things. But mature discipline is something much deeper. It is self-respect expressed through action. Every disciplined choice communicates a message that says, my future matters, my character matters, my potential matters, my life matters. That's why discipline feels different than motivation. Motivation comes and goes. Discipline remains. Motivation depends on emotion. Discipline depends on identity. And identity determines destiny. Not overnight, not dramatically, but relentlessly. The man who reads 10 pages every day becomes different. The woman who invests in her mind every day becomes different. The person who consistently reflects, learns, and grows becomes different, not in a week, not in a month, but in years. And years are what build lives. This is another lesson people discover too late. Life is not changed by massive decisions. Life is changed by repeated decisions. The small things, the invisible things, the choices nobody applauds, the conversations nobody hears, the habits nobody notices. Those are the things quietly constructing your future, which means your future isn't waiting for you. It's already being built today through what you repeatedly do. And that realization can feel terrifying or empowering, depending on how you see it. Because if your daily actions created your current reality, they can also create a different one. Not instantly, but inevitably. This is why personal development creates hope. Real hope, not fantasy, not wishful thinking. Hope grounded in responsibility. The understanding that while you cannot control everything, you can control who you become, and that changes everything. Stoic philosophers believed that true freedom came from mastering oneself, not circumstances, not other people, yourself. Because a person who cannot govern their own mind becomes vulnerable to every external force, every criticism, every setback, every disappointment, every temptation, every fear. But a person who develops internal strength acquires something rare: stability. And in an unstable world, stability becomes a superpower, especially as you grow older. Because eventually success stops meaning what it once meant. You begin caring less about appearances, less about impressing strangers, less about proving yourself, and more about peace, more about integrity, more about meaning, more about becoming someone you genuinely respect. This is where many people finally understand Jim Rohn's wisdom. Not intellectually, experientially. They realize they spent years chasing outcomes, when they should have been building character, spent years pursuing achievements, when they should have been developing themselves, spent years asking, how can I make more money? Instead of asking, how can I become more valuable? Because value begins internally and eventually flows outward, not the other way around. The world often teaches people to pursue success. Jim Rohn taught people to pursue growth. Because success follows growth, not vice versa. And perhaps that's the deepest message hidden inside this philosophy. Your greatest project is not your business, not your career, not your bank account, not your reputation. You are the person looking back at you in the mirror, the person carrying your fears, your dreams, your regrets, your potential, your future. That person deserves attention, development, care. Because at the end of life, very few people wish they had spent more time at the office, but many wish they had become more courageous, more disciplined, more present, more authentic, more alive. And maybe that's what personal development truly is. Not self-improvement, self-discovery, the gradual uncovering of the person hidden beneath fear, distraction, and limitation. The person capable of far more than they realize. The person waiting patiently beneath years of conditioning. The person who emerges when excuses finally lose their power. When discipline becomes identity. When growth becomes a lifestyle. When self-respect becomes non-negotiable. And perhaps tonight, after all the noise fades, after the responsibilities pause, after the world becomes quiet, you might ask yourself a simple question. Not how much money you've earned, not how successful you appear, not how busy you've been, but something deeper. Have I been working harder on my life, or harder on myself? Because one creates a living, the other creates a legacy. And when the years finally pass, when the noise finally settles, when achievements become memories, the person you became will matter far more than the work you did. That is the truth Jim Rohn spent a lifetime trying to teach. And perhaps the most important work you'll ever do is the work nobody sees. The work of becoming.